If you're planning a teddy bear themed baby shower, let me show you how to make your giant teddy bear float with this freestanding design. First of all, I'm going to make the cloud by inflating 24 11-inch white balloons, 2 at a time, anywhere between 7 and 9 inches in diameter. Press on them so that they're nice and round, and then tie them in a pair by wrapping the nozzle around twice and tying them in a knot. I'm going to do this with all of the white balloons so that they're tied into pairs, and then I'm going to join 3 of those pairs into a cluster of 6 by overlapping 2 of those pairs so that the nozzles touch in the center, and then twist 1 balloon from each of those pairs around each other, locking it into a quad. To that quad, we're going to slip the 3rd pair so that all the nozzles are touching once again, and then tie one of those balloons from the new pair around one of the balloons that's already in the quad, and that will make our cluster of 6 balloons. Create 4 clusters in this manner, 2 of them on the larger 9-inch side, and 2 of them on the smaller 7-inch side. That will allow our cloud to have a tapered shape. I'm going to join these clusters together with an empty white 260 balloon. Secure the end of that 260 to the nozzles of the balloons in one of those small clusters, either by tying a double knot or pinching and wrapping in a figure 8 pattern. Now you're going to take the small cluster that we just attached that 260 to and nestle it right up against one of the larger clusters so that the balloons are nice and snug. Then pull that 260 balloon through the center of the larger cluster and wrap it around 2 balloons in that cluster a couple times, and that will join the 2 clusters together. Now I'm going to grab another large cluster and nestle it right up against the 2 that we've already joined, pull that 260 through the center, wrap again so they're secured, and then end with that tiny cluster. Once you've gotten the little one attached to the others, you're then going to take one of the nozzles from that tiny balloon and tie the remaining 260 tail to one of those nozzles with a double knot, and that will keep everything nice and securely joined. Next, we need to attach our cloud to a balloon stand. This is a 5-foot tall balloon stand, and this will be the structure that will allow us to place our floating teddy bear anywhere in our party or event space. So take your cloud and slip it around the pole so that the pole is touching that 260 that's stretched between the clusters, and it should come right out through the center of the balloons. Now I need to camouflage the balloon stand pole so it looks like one of the ribbons the teddy bear is holding onto. So I'm going to take my ribbon and attach it directly to this pole using a couple of glue dashes. Place your first glue dash right near the top edge of the pole, remove the paper backing, and then stick the ribbon directly into the adhesive. I'm going to pull the ribbon taut and move about halfway down the pole, right where the teddy bear is going to be holding on to the pole. Place another glue dash there, stick the ribbon in place, and then I'm going to move down and place one more glue dash at the very base of the stand amongst the balloon clouds. That way, at no point in this design is the pole visible. Do the exact same thing on the back side of the pole so the entire thing is covered in 2 ribbons. Now it's time to add the star of this design. I'm using a 47-inch tall teddy bear, which I'll link below if you'd like to use the same one. There are 2 main poses you can set the teddy bear in. The first is sitting on top of the clouds and casually holding onto the ribbons with the balloons pulling him up. The second pose is having the teddy bear dangle down for the balloons and float midway through the design. This is a little bit more dramatic, but you do have to tie the teddy bear's hand very firmly to the top of the pole to pull this off. I prefer to actually set the teddy bear on the balloons as it's much more stable and easier to pose the teddy bear in a way that he'll stay put. I'll be securing the bear to the design using rubber bands. So take your first rubber band and slip it over the top of the pole and bring it all the way down so it's right above the balloon clouds. Then you're going to take the foot of the teddy bear and press it through the center of that rubber band and bring the rubber band right up to the hip of the teddy bear. This bear is quite heavy, and we want to keep the torso of the bear right against that center pole as much as possible. To support the upper part of the bear, I'm going to slip another rubber band down over the pole until it's about shoulder height with the teddy bear. Slip the bear's arm through that rubber band until it's right up against the shoulder of the bear. Now, because the arm is a little smaller, this rubber band might be a little loose, so you can actually double up the rubber band before slipping it on the arm, and that will keep it a little more securely tied to the pole. Now, to make it look like the bear is holding onto the ribbons, you want to double up your rubber band so it's tighter, slip it right about ear height with the teddy bear, wrap the teddy bear's arm around behind the pole and into the front of the pole, and then slip the hand just through that doubled up rubber band so it looks like he's grasping it. At this point, you could allow the legs of the teddy bear to just drape off the edge of the clouds. But if you have any intention of moving this design to another location, I highly recommend you also secure the feet to the balloons, and you can simply stretch your rubber band over one of the balloons in the cloud and then put the foot of the teddy bear through that same rubber band, and it'll look like he's got his foot propped up on the edge of it. Not only does this give the teddy bear a more defined foot and knee bend, this also helps stabilize the bear by just having multiple tie points and less floppiness overall. Now we need to inflate the balloons that are carrying our teddy bear away. So I've got 8 11-inch balloons that I've inflated anywhere between 7 and 9 inches in diameter, tied them into pairs, and then I'm going to join them all into a cluster of 8. So just like we did with our cluster of 6, we're going to slip these together so that the nozzles touch, and then twist one balloon from the new pair around one balloon that's already in the cluster until we have 4 pairs all tied together in one big cluster of 8. Make 4 of these clusters and lay them out in a square on the floor. We're going to tie all 4 of these together using an empty 260 balloon. So tie the end of that 260 to one of the clusters, and then you're going to nestle that right up against the cluster right next to it. Pull that 260 through the center, wrap it around a couple of the balloons, but instead of trying to come straight out and make a line, we want to rotate the balloons and turn the 260 so that the next cluster we add is at a 90-degree angle to the first 2. It's important as you tie these clusters together that they're nice and snug and you're pulling that 260 pretty taut so you can get all the way to the end with one single 260. Though if you happen to run out of a 260 length part way through, you can always tie another one end to end so you have enough length to tie all these balloons together. Once you tie on that 4th cluster, the balloons will be able to shimmy around in a U shape. You want to take that remaining 260 tail and wrap it around the balloons of that first cluster where you started and tie the end of that 260 tail to one of the nozzles in that first cluster so that all 4 sides of this square are secured together. Now, while you've got it flat on the floor is a good time to rotate the balloons around so you have a nice mix of colors if you're using multiple colored balloons like I am. Pick up your balloon square and rotate it on an angle so it looks like a diamond from the front now. You're going to take the pole that the teddy bear is attached to and slip it right through the center of that first cluster of 8 right against the nozzles of those balloons. Keep pulling those balloons down onto the pole until the top of that pole just peeks past the first cluster of balloons. It's the tension between those balloons that will hold the entire upper section to the pole. I built this with indoor use in mind. If you plan to take this anywhere where there might be a slight breeze, you should definitely use a 7-foot pole and make sure the top of that pole goes through the center of that uppermost cluster for added support. Now I want to make it look like the teddy bear is holding onto the balloons, so I'm going to roughly measure out about 5 feet length of ribbon. Now you could make yours longer or shorter depending on how long you want the tails to drape over the bottom of the cloud. Then I'm going to repeat this step until I have 6 of these ribbons all cut to about the same length. Using a glue dash, I'm going to adhere the end of the ribbon to any of these balloons on the underside of my upper cluster. Simply place the adhesive on the back of the ribbon and then stick the ribbon to the balloons somewhere as inconspicuous as possible. We want to give the illusion that this ribbon is just appearing out of this cluster of balloons. I'm going to evenly distribute these ribbons so that there's 3 of them to the left of the center pole and 3 of them to the right of the center pole. Then I'm going to gather up all those ribbons next to the teddy bear's hand, making sure that the ribbons aren't twisted and they have a slight bit of tension in them. While you hold the ribbons in one hand, we're going to open up the rubber band that's holding the teddy bear's hand to the pole so that there's a nice gap and we can insert the tails of all those ribbons through that same rubber band. This will make it look like the teddy bear is actually holding all of these ribbons. Now you may have to do a little finessing with the placement of all those ribbons, and if you just gently tug on all the tails, that'll return the tension to the upper section of the ribbon so it looks like the teddy bear is actually pulling on those upper balloons. Now that the main elements are in place, it's time to add a bit more texture to our balloons. I've inflated 48 5-inch white balloons to 4 pumps of air with a hand pump or 4.5 inches in diameter, tied them into pairs, and then twisted them all into quads. Now I'm going to take an empty 260 balloon, cut it in half, and use 1/2 of that to tie 2 of these little quads together. Simply pinch one end of that 260 balloon against the nozzles of those mini balloons, wrap it in a figure 8 pattern a couple times, and that'll secure it in place. Do the exact same thing on the opposite end, and then we're going to attach these across our cloud. So look for anywhere you want to add a little bit more texture, and take the 260 that's between those 2 quads and wrap it around 1 or 2 of the balloons that are already in the cloud, making sure that 260 is sitting against the nozzles of that larger balloon so it's hidden from sight. Then you can just play with the placement of the smaller balloons until they're sitting where you'd like. A good place to add these mini balloons is right near the base of our balloon stand to hide away the mechanics that may still be peeking between those white balloons. Once you've got all of these spread across the cloud, you can then arrange the ribbons on top so that they drape gracefully across our cloud. Next, I want to make the upper balloon clusters look nice and lush. I've inflated one more 11-inch balloon to fill in this hole that happens in the center of the balloon clusters and to hide away the top of the balloon pole. Now I'm just going to place a couple of glue dashes anywhere this one balloon touches some of the balloons that are already in the clusters, and that will hold it in place. Now you can also close up some of the gaps by attaching glue dashes between some of these 11-inch balloons and pressing them together. This will help make smaller gaps that we can easily fill in with some 5-inch balloons. I inflated 24 of these to about 4.5 inches in diameter to cover the front side of this design. Now, if you want your design to be seen from both the front and the back, you may want to inflate more of these to stick on the back side of this balloon cluster for ample coverage. I'm placing these 5-inch balloons anywhere there's a bit of a gap in my larger balloons, and also to mix up the colors. I'm trying to make sure I don't put too many of one color right next to each other so I get a nice blend of shape, color, and texture. When creating balloon designs, it's the small details that will take your design to the next level. The head of my teddy bear was sagging a little bit to the side, and I wanted to make sure his head would stay upright through the entire party. So I'm going to safety pin the ear of the teddy bear to the hand that's wrapped around the pole, and that little bit of extra support will make sure the teddy bear stays nice and upright for the duration of the party. If you'd like to make this design for your own party, there's a set of written plans available in the description box below. So until the next time, remember, stay creative, everybody!